Today, with this solemnity of the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary, we are reminded of God's plan for us from the very beginning. His plan for us was to live forever. He created men and women to share in his divine life. But, as we heard in our first reading tonight, Adam and Eve, doubting that God really loved them, as he said he did, disobeyed. And they cut themselves off from God's life. And we too, each day, sometimes in smaller ways and sometimes in greater ways, we too also sin in ways that harm our relationship with God when we choose our own selfish ways instead of his. But the good news is that God did not abandon us, although we at times might abandon him. As soon as Adam and Eve separate themselves from God, God responds with a plan to bring us back to the life that he wants for us. So he promised immediately to send a woman who would have a son, and the son would defeat evil and sin and death forever. We have a God, a Father, who keeps his promises. And so we find the fulfillment of that promise in the gospel this evening. This woman, Mary, will have a son, Jesus. The first Eve, she listened to the bad angel, disobeying God. But Mary, the second Eve, she listens to the good angel, Gabriel, and responds to God in obedience. The first Eve, whose name means the mother of all the living, tragically ended up bringing death to all through her choice. The second Eve, Mary, she now has become our true mother, bringing life through her choice and the action, saving action of her Son. The first Eve lost her state of holiness and innocence in that garden, losing life for us all. But the second Eve, she was protected from sin from the very moment of her existence, conceived in the womb of her mother in holiness and innocence, so that Jesus, who is holiness and innocence himself, would be born from her womb. And this is why we celebrate Mary's Immaculate Conception today. God the Father applied to Mary the results of Jesus' sacrifice, the forgiveness of sins, even before Jesus carried it out upon the cross. You know, God can do that because for him there is no before and after. And this special holiness that Mary had, as the angel describes, Mary full of grace, is something that she received first as our model and example. Because each of us are also made for holiness. So we hear Paul say in the second reading that God has blessed us in Christ with every spiritual blessing, that he chose us in him to be holy and without blemish. He destined us for adoption with himself. So, what Mary has already received, we too have great hope in receiving as well. Today's feast reminds us of this glorious truth.